There's something different about places that are far away from everything. No cities, no lights, no signal, just long roads, empty forests, and silence that feels a little too heavy. Out there, if something happens, there's no one to hear you, no one to help you. And sometimes, that's exactly why certain things happen there. The stories you're about to hear all take place in the middle of nowhere, places where people went looking for quiet and found something else instead. So if you're alone right now, you might want to keep it that way, because once you hear these stories, you'll start to wonder, what else could be out there, just beyond the light? I was driving back home after my brother's wedding. He lives on the opposite side of the country, so the trip wasn't short. It was one of those long, exhausting cross-country drives that takes nearly a week if you don't rush it. I wasn't trying to make it enjoyable. I just wanted to get home. So every day I drove as long as I physically could. 10, sometimes 12 hours straight. Sleep, wake up, repeat. By the fourth day, I was already worn down. Not completely exhausted, but that kind of tired where everything feels slower. Your reactions, your thinking, even your sense of time. That night, I decided to keep pushing a little longer than usual. I figured I'd drive until I found a motel, no matter how late it got. It seemed simple enough. Around 10 p.m., I ended up on a stretch of road that felt wrong. There were no lights, no houses, no gas stations, not even passing cars. Just a long, empty road cutting through darkness. At first, I didn't think much of it. Plenty of highways get quiet at night. But after about 20 minutes, I started noticing something. I hadn't seen a single car, not one. No headlights behind me, no taillights ahead, nothing. That's when I checked my phone. No signal, not even a bar. That made me a little uneasy, because if something went wrong out here, I was completely on my own. Still, I told myself I was fine. The car was running perfectly. I had gas. I wasn't even that tired yet. I took a sip from one of the energy drinks I had in the passenger seat and kept going. 30 minutes passed, still nothing. Just the road and the dark. And then suddenly, something appeared in my headlights. At first, it looked like movement, just a shape. Then it became clearer, a person, standing on the side of the road, waving. I instinctively slowed down for half a second, then immediately sped past. It all happened too fast to process, but in that brief moment, I saw enough. It was a woman. Her clothes were dirty, torn. Her posture was hunched, like she was hurt, and she was waving both arms in the air, desperately, like she needed help. I kept driving, but within seconds, that feeling hit. Guilt, heavy, immediate, because out here, there was nothing, no help, no signal, no one else coming. If she was actually injured, if she needed help, I had just left her there. And that thought wouldn't go away. I've never picked up hitchhikers, never trusted random people on the road. But this felt different. She didn't look like someone asking for a ride. She looked like someone who needed help. So after about a minute, I slowed down, then turned around. Even as I did it, I told myself, just pull up. Don't get out, don't get close. If anything feels off, leave. That was the plan. When I got back to where I saw her, she wasn't near the road anymore. She had moved, closer to the trees, still standing, still waving. But now, she was further back. That made something in my chest tighten. Why would she move away from the road? If she needed help, wouldn't she stay where someone could see her? I drove past again, turned around, and pulled up right where she had been, and she was gone, completely gone. I sat there in the car, engine running, headlights cutting into the empty road, waiting. Nothing, no movement, no sound. It was like she had never been there. That should have been my sign to leave, but instead, I did something incredibly stupid. I got out of the car. I don't know why. Maybe it was curiosity, maybe it was guilt, or maybe it was something else. The moment I stepped away from the car, the silence felt different, heavier, like the sound of the world had been turned down. I walked toward the edge of the road and looked into the trees. At first, I couldn't see anything. The darkness swallowed everything past a few feet, and then Something moved. A shift, a shape, deeper in the woods. My eyes adjusted slowly, and then I saw her again. She was standing much further back now, farther than I expected, farther than it would make sense for someone injured to walk in that short amount of time. And she was still waving, still calling out. Her voice was faint, weak, like she had been screaming for hours, maybe days. Something about it didn't sit right, but I still took a step forward, then another and another, until suddenly, it hit me. This didn't feel like helping someone. It felt like being pulled in, like I wasn't choosing to walk forward, like something was guiding me deeper. That realization snapped something in my head. I stopped immediately, and the moment I did, everything changed. Her arms dropped. Her voice stopped. Instantly, not fading, not trailing off, just gone. And in that silence, I saw her more clearly. She was tall. Too tall. Not impossibly so, but wrong. Her proportions felt off, like something wasn't quite human. Then she moved again, one slow step forward, and her head tilted, just enough for her face to catch a bit of light. And what I saw made my entire body go cold. It wasn't a woman, or at least, it didn't look like one anymore. The features were wrong, too sharp, too unnatural. Something about it felt completely inhuman. I didn't think. I turned and ran, branches snapping under my feet, heart pounding so hard I could hear it. And behind me, her voice came back, calling for help again, like nothing had happened. I didn't look back. I reached my car, got in, and floored it down the road. I didn't stop, didn't slow down. I drove the entire night without resting. And even now, I don't know what I saw out there, but I know one thing. If I had taken a few more steps into those woods, I wouldn't have made it back. I took that trip to get away from everything. No signal, no people, no noise, just forest. It was a hunting trip, but honestly, I wasn't even that focused on hunting. I just wanted the isolation, a reset. The place I chose was deep in the backcountry, a small public shelter that most people don't even know exists. Calling it a cabin would have been generous. It was basically a wooden box. 4 walls, a door that didn't fully seal, one small window. Inside, there were 2 bunk beds built into the wall. Nothing else. No electricity, no heat, no lock on the door. Just something better than a tent. When I got there, it looked untouched. Dust on the floor, cobwebs in the corners, no footprints. That was exactly what I wanted. I unpacked just enough to settle in, then planned my first excursion. The idea was simple. I'd hike out into the forest for a couple days, camp there, then return to the shelter to rest before going out again. The next morning I left early. The forest was quiet. Too quiet. Normally, even in remote areas, you hear something. Birds, wind, animals moving through brush. But out there was almost nothing. No tracks either. No deer prints. No signs of movement. It felt like the area had been abandoned. I stayed out for 2 nights, camped deeper in the woods, waited, watched, saw nothing. By the 3rd morning, I decided to head back. When I reached the shelter, something felt off immediately, not in a dramatic way, just subtle. I stepped inside and stood there for a second, looking around. At first I couldn't pinpoint it, but then it clicked. Things had moved, not much. Just small things. My pack, slightly shifted. A piece of gear not where I left it. Nothing was missing, but it was enough to know someone had been inside. Recently, that thought didn't scare me right away. This was public land. Anyone could pass through. It wasn't impossible that someone had used the shelter while I was gone, but something about it still bothered me because of how remote it was. You don't just wander into a place like that. You go there intentionally. Still, I pushed the feeling aside, made food, sat down, tried to relax. The rest of the day passed slowly. As the sun went down, I started preparing for the next trip out. Checked my gear, repacked everything. By nightfall, I was lying in the bunk staring at the ceiling. The shelter felt different now, smaller, like the walls were closer than before. Time passed. I wasn't sure how much. Then I heard it, Voices, faint at first. 2 people, talking, somewhere outside. I sat up immediately. The voices got louder, closer, then footsteps, right outside the door. I stood up just as the door opened. 2 men walked in. No hesitation, no knocking, just walked in. I froze. They didn't. One of them gave a small nod, like it was completely normal. I said, "Hey." Neither of them responded. They just walked to the other bunk and set their gear down. Then, silence. Not the comfortable kind. The kind that feels deliberate, like something is being held back. I stood there for a moment, unsure what to do. Part of me wanted to leave right then, grab my gear and go, but it was pitch black outside, no clear trail. Leaving in the dark out there was dangerous. So I stayed, got back into my bunk, tried to act normal. The shelter suddenly felt much smaller. 3 people inside, and no space to move. After a minute, one of the men climbed onto the top bunk. The other stayed below, still silent. I lay there, staring at the ceiling, waiting. Minutes passed. Nothing, no shifting, no talking, just silence. Eventually, I turned my head slightly and looked at them. One of them was already looking at me, completely still, like he had been watching me the whole time. I snapped my eyes back to the ceiling. My heart was pounding. What the hell was that? Why were they just watching me? The longer I lay there, the worse it felt. Not knowing what they were doing, not hearing them move. It didn't feel like I was sharing space with people. It felt like I was being observed. At some point, I must have fallen asleep. I don't remember when, but when I woke up, I knew something was wrong immediately. It was completely dark, no moonlight, no glow from outside, just darkness and silence, heavy silence. Then I remembered the men. I turned slowly, and my heart dropped. They weren't in the bunks. They were standing in the middle of the shelter, both of them, facing me, not moving, not speaking, just standing there, watching. For a second, I couldn't breathe. Then everything hit at once. I jumped back, grabbed my gear, and bolted for the door. They didn't try to stop me, didn't say anything. They just watched. As I ran out into the darkness, I didn't stop, didn't look back. Branches snapping under my feet, breath burning in my chest. I ran for miles, until I physically couldn't anymore. Then I sat against a tree and waited for hours, until the sun came up. When it did, I left. Didn't go back to the shelter, didn't pack anything else, just left. And to this day, I don't know what those men were doing, or what would have happened if I hadn't woken up when I did. A couple times a year, I take trips where I just disappear for a while. No cities, no schedules, no people. I load up my truck camper, stock it with food and gear, and head out into public land areas where you can camp for free. Most people stick to the easier spots, places with other campers nearby. I don't. I prefer the quiet, the kind of places where you don't hear anything at night except wind and your own breathing. That trip, I ended up deep in the forests of East Idaho. I didn't even plan the exact spot. I had tried a few locations earlier in the day, but every campsite was taken. So I kept driving, further and further down a narrow forest trail. Eventually I found a small clearing, just one pull-off. No other cars, no signs of recent use. It felt perfect. I didn't bother exploring further, didn't check how far the trail went. I just parked, set up. By the time I finished, the sun had already gone down. I turned on the lights, mounted on the side of my camper, set up a small table and chair, started a fire. The forest around me was completely still. No voices, no distant campers, just silence. That's one of the things I love about places like that. You feel completely alone. At least, that's what I thought. I'd been sitting by the fire for maybe an hour when I heard footsteps. Soft at first, then clearer, coming from directly in front of me, out of the darkness. I looked up, and a man stepped into the light. I didn't jump. I had just enough warning from the sound. But I was surprised. I hadn't seen a single person out there. He walked right up to my campsite like it was normal, gave a small wave. "Hey," he said. He looked like any other camper, mid-30s, wearing a jacket. Nothing unusual. We talked for a bit, Just casual conversation, how long we'd been out there, where we were from. I offered him a beer. He took it. But something about the interaction felt incomplete, like there was something missing. He never explained why he came over, never mentioned hearing my camp, never said where he was staying. He just talked. And then, after about half an hour, he stood up. "All right, I'll let you get back to it," he said. Then he walked back into the dark, the same way he came. At the time, I didn't think too much of it. I assumed he had a campsite nearby. Maybe he saw my fire and came over to see who his neighbor was. That happens sometimes. Eventually, I went inside the camper and went to sleep. The next morning, I got up early, made coffee, then decided to walk down the trail a bit, just to see how far it went, and where the other campsites were. The air was cold, the forest still quiet. I walked for a minute, then two, and then I stopped. There was nothing. No campsites, no paths, just a small turnaround area. And beyond that, dense forest. Impossible to drive through. I stood there for a long time, trying to make sense of it, because that meant one thing. There was nowhere for him to be. No truck, no tent, no campsite, nothing. I walked back, checked the trail the other way. Still nothing. When I got back to my site, I sat there, trying to convince myself there was a reasonable explanation. Maybe he left early. Maybe I missed something, but none of it made sense. Still, I let it go. Told myself it wasn't worth worrying about. The rest of the day passed quietly. I cooked, relaxed, watched the sun go down over the trees. By nightfall, I had almost forgotten about it, until I heard footsteps again. Same direction, same sound, and then he walked out of the darkness, like the night before. Same calm expression, same casual approach. He sat down by the fire without asking. "How's your night going?" he said. Like nothing was strange. I forced myself to stay calm, played along. But this time, I asked him directly. "Where are you camped?" He pointed down the trail. "Just over there," he said. Exactly where I had walked that morning, where I knew there was nothing. I gave a small laugh, said something like, "That's weird. I walked down there earlier and didn't see anything." His smile faded, not completely, but enough. His face went still. He said quietly. "That is weird." Then silence. We just sat there, looking at each other. And then he asked, "What else did you see?" The way he said it felt wrong. Not curious, careful, like he needed to know something. Like there was something I wasn't supposed to see. I told him nothing, that it was foggy, hard to see anything. He stared at me for a few seconds, then smiled again. "Good," he said softly. Then he stood up. "I can show you," he added. He took a few steps toward the darkness, gesturing for me to follow. I didn't move. "I'm good," I said. He paused, then turned back toward me. His expression changed again. Not angry, not aggressive, just different. Like something wasn't going the way he expected. He nodded slowly, then walked away, back into the trees. The moment he disappeared, everything in me shifted. That feeling, the one you don't ignore. I stood up immediately, started throwing everything into the camper. Didn't pack properly, didn't organize anything, just shoved it all inside. I got in the driver's seat, started the engine, and pulled out. As I turned, my headlights swept across the campsite one last time, and for a split second, I saw him, standing just beyond the edge of the light, watching me, and in his hands, he was holding something. I couldn't tell what it was. The light moved too quickly, and then he was gone. I didn't stop driving until I reached a main road. Even now, I don't know what that man was doing out there, or where he came from. But I know one thing. If I had followed him into those woods, I wouldn't have come back. Out in places like that, there's no one to tell you what's normal and what isn't. No lights, no witnesses, no way to be sure. What you just experienced was real, and maybe that's the most disturbing part. Because sometimes, it's not about what you saw, It's about what could have happened if you stayed just a little longer or took one more step into the dark. If you enjoyed these stories, make sure to subscribe to Midnight Whispers for more. And before you go, take a second and look around, because the scariest places aren't always far away. Sometimes they're closer than you think.